Is Netflix getting exhausted by Meghan Markle, especially with the third flop in a row while Meghan is seen partying at a baby shower? Yes, the company has invested $100 million in content from the Sussexes, and they've barely gotten their money's worth. Now, while they probably haven't given the full amount to the couple, it's hard to believe that the Netflix execs aren't sitting back there and thinking, what the heck were we thinking when we signed the two of them? Because Harry and Meghan are apparently really, really bad in this industry. They're unable to create good and compelling content. But I think the bigger issue here is Meghan Markle, because I feel like there's been a couple of times where we've seen Meghan, as things are seemingly failing around them, that she's going to parties, she's going to events, she's acting like nothing is wrong, rather than seeming to hold her feet to the fire and work really, really hard. It's just so obvious. Meghan wants the party lifestyle, the Hollywood elite lifestyle, and yet none of the responsibility for actually creating the content. And unfortunately, she married a guy who is unable to support her desires for endless freebies. And so we are going to go into this today. There's actually a couple articles talking about sort of this collapse of Netflix and the one little grasp and gasp of air that they have left, which is American Riviera Orchard, which is the last thing among a series of failed projects so far. We've been told a couple of things. There was even one project I totally forgot about, which the couple haven't been able to do. And with their contract expiring next year, I just can't see Netflix moving forward, or at least moving forward with a very different contract terms. And definitely no company is going to pick them up unless they have something more to offer about the royals. So therein lies the danger. So we're going to go into this, but if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, I would love to have you back. We have an amazing, fun time here discussing all things related to royals. And one of the things I find most fascinating about the train wreck that is Harry and Meghan is that despite all the business acumen around them, they continue to fail. It's very strange because it's like they have all the resources in the world to make things successful, and yet they can't seem to do it. Why is that? And you look at this whole Netflix situation, and I feel like we have a great example in kind of the comparison between the flop that is Polo, which came out last week, and a picture emerging from last week of Meghan Markle living it up at a baby shower. Now, while I will say Meghan's defense, she of course can live her private life, that's not an issue. But what I find to be sort of the critical issue here in terms of looking at them from a business perspective is that you are on a downward trajectory. The Sussexes overall are on a downward trajectory. They've had failure after failure. They've lost their deal with Spotify. They have sort of these last gasps maybe with a deal with Netflix. And they have these things, and yet they're just not seeming to work for them. We have articles coming out talking about their separate career paths as a philanthropist and entrepreneur. And then we also see Meghan Markle partying and living it up amongst failure. And as a business investor potentially in them as a couple, I'm like, you're failing. And yet you don't seem to be trying to address that failure. Instead, you're just living it up and partying as if nothing is wrong. And sometimes there is kind of a wisdom there to avoiding, you could say, the naysayers, the chaos of something else, and trying to act like nothing is wrong. I think there's an actual wisdom there. But when it comes to Harry and Meghan, it's like you have failures and you've had promises that you haven't fulfilled, and yet you're over here partying. It doesn't work. And according to a latest article from the Daily Mail, Netflix is exhausted, and I don't blame them. They've been difficult to work with, they have made demands, and their products aren't good. And they're not doing the simple business thing, which is promoting their pieces. So when it comes to Polo, it doesn't even have to be Harry and Meghan promoting it. It could be the Polo players, their wives, whoever they had who featured prominently in the series, or maybe even Bob, who had a stroke and is recovering, or not a stroke, he fell off his horse, got in a coma or whatever, and is recovering after a polo accident. That might have been an interesting person to interview. There's like a lot of different facets of people they could interview to sort of promote this series. They did zero promotion for it. There's no posters, there's no advertisements, there is nothing for this series. And there's a couple actually different ways you could look at this. Number one is that Harry and Meghan, apparently, according to somebody who wrote on X, is that apparently Harry and Meghan don't have it in their contract that they don't promote their products, which is bizarre that Netflix would allow that. But I think Netflix was thinking, oh, they had the connection to the royals. That's the only reason they're worth $100 million. So they don't really have to promote it. And they didn't for their initial series because they're talking about the royals. But Harry and Meghan, when they damaged and burned the bridges with every single member of the royal family, well, wouldn't you know it? They have no more royal content to sell. They've sold all the content already, essentially. Oprah interview, the series, and Harry's book Spare. I mean, what else do they have to share? They've shared all their allegations so far. So how could they make that any more salacious? I don't think they could unless they delve into the realm of simply just lying. That's the only way they can go forwards. And so Netflix may have allowed them to write that into their contract. Or the other way I could read this is that Netflix knew this was a bomb and was like, you know what, we're not going to put any money behind promoting it. If it does well, it'll be a surprise and we'll pat each other on the back. But it's not really worth us putting any time, money, energy, and effort into promoting something that we all know is boring. Because I mean, literally a month before this came out, a month or two, an article shared that the Netflix execs had seen it and they thought it was boring. And they were right. That is what I and other reviewers have said. It's a boring series. And so obviously, they had seen it. It was 5 episodes. Like the report there was accurate. And so Netflix can't be too happy at this point because it seems like Harry and Meghan don't have a plan. They have a minimal work ethic and they're willing to be seen partying instead of working as hard as they can to sort of right the ship. Because I think Netflix could sort of write it off if they're like, well, they've had another flop, but they're working really hard to change things up. It's very clear, though, they're not working hard to change things up. In fact, things just continue to go sort of from bad to worse. Like there's no adjustment to anything. It's all looking really, really bad. So here, let's get to this Daily Mail article, which I think has some interesting nuggets. So it talks about how one Californian source told the author, it's make or break. People say Netflix are exhausted. It's so much to work with her. And bluntly, the deliverable does not seem to be worth it. And I find it interesting that they call out Meghan in particular, because she is sort of, you could say, I don't know what you word, like the experienced one in this industry. So she should know better. So they work with her more. I think Harry's just totally, he doesn't know what's going on anymore. And so he lets her control it all. And Netflix is like, she is so exhausting to work with because she makes all these demands and she really wasn't somebody who could make these demands. Again, I go back to Hollywood is willing to work with a lot of people who have a lot of nasty reputations. You have to have talent. She doesn't have talent. She's demanding. She's difficult to work with. And those are all kind of the kiss of death in the industry. Goes on to say, another entertainment executive remarks, her show will have to be an enormous hit to turn around their deal and the reputations in this town. Because Hollywood doesn't want more failure. Harry and Meghan just mean more failure. And yes, there are some studios right now who just seem to just bank on failure. Like they just continue to go on with these things that aren't working. And it's like, okie dokie, if you want to burn money, burn money, I guess. But Netflix isn't like that. And so they're just, I don't think to the point where they're like, yes, let's re-sign Harry and Meghan unless they have a massive hit with ARO. And what's interesting is that Harry's not involved with ARO at all. And that could be both a good and a bad thing because the unfortunate thing is Meghan's just, again, not a great talent here. So it goes on to say, but if, and we shall say it's a big if, people start buying her cookery, biscuit mixes, rosé, wine, and napkins, that might just be a sustainable revenue stream, which the couple have been in desperate need of since Megxit, when, as Harry memorably complained, my family literally cut me off financially. Well-placed sources indicate the launch of the show and the brand will happen in the first quarter of the year, and judging by the fact that it's not part of any Netflix schedules in January, we must expect late February or after. Now, it could be, because they make this point of the Invictus Games is in February, and they say Meghan probably won't launch then. I was like, I could totally see her actually launching and trying to overshadow the Invictus Games, which would be very par for the course for Meghan. But when it comes to launching a new brand like this, like it's a big if, and you're investing in a lot of capital, a lot of product that may or may not sell. And what we've seen sort of time and time again is that because of all the dismal numbers and everything, it's really only their stands and people who are hate watching who watch their stuff. And that's a small cadre of people. And so without that benefit, do Harry and Meghan have any sort of, you could argue, successful endeavors in this way? I would argue kind of no, because will Harry and Meghan end up with a sustainable revenue source that they're like in desperate need of? I'm gonna argue no. They should have done this either a long time ago or before, because Meghan's unfortunate big problem with this whole ARO situation is that when it comes to sort of cooking and doing those kind of things, authenticity is key. And Meghan Markle's not authentic. Like, you can imagine her in this show. She has a huge long table and she's putting out all like the silverware and plates and everything, dressing the table gorgeously. And she's like, oh, for my family and friends. And it's like, well, what's family? Because you have no relationship with your family. And that sort of thing will continue to come back and bite her because she has burned bridges with so many people. Every time she tries to act like she has these great friendships and she's very homely, she welcomes people into her home and her life, we all know that's not true because she kicks them out really quickly. So that's an inauthentic thing. Like her, maybe claiming that she hosts a bunch of people. It's like, no, she claimed to have hosted Gloria Allred. Other people have their families to go to for holidays. So that's where they go. But she maybe has Gloria Allred come in. But it's like, does anybody really care? Does that really matter? It's an interesting question. So next it says, obviously Harry's Victus Games are in February. A Netflix source says details of Meghan's project are being shared only with a tiny audience of executives in the US. It's a very tight circle, I'm told. Everything to do with her is kept completely secret. We do know that the show will be very much made according to Meghan's vision, all neutral shades and soft focus camera lenses. So I found that really interesting, but also very concerning. I think her just obsession with secrecy, it just hasn't played well for her overall. And it makes me think that you're like embarrassed of something, you're worried about something, so you don't want people to see it because it's not good. But yet at the same time, you'll launch American Riviera Orchard and then we're all watching the trademark chaos play out in the press. So I was like, well, you didn't really keep that secret. So like, why did you do that? Again, so many things are just like sort of ridiculous and like soft focus and everything. What people are craving is authenticity. Meghan Markle is utterly contrived. And because she's contrived, she can't be authentic. Because she can't be authentic, she can't sell authenticity. So that is a huge conundrum for her going forwards. Goes on to say the shows filmed not at her Montecito home, but at a nearby mansion, have been directed by a veteran who worked with Anthony Bourdain, the showrunner Leah Harrington, who previously made Selena Plus Chef in 2020, featured actress Selena Gomez. They have been produced for Netflix by the intellectual property company, which is part of Sony. So what I want to point out there is that they have worked with competent people, and yet the product still sucks at the end of the day. We've seen this with all their documentaries, even Harry and Meghan, and even the Polo series was worked on by somebody who had a previous success. The failure all comes back to Harry and Meghan. So they're the problem. So regardless of who they're working for, if Meghan can't allow actual strong creative people to have input into the series, it all has to be from her, then she'll end up with a bad situation. So it looks like Netflix is hoping she becomes somewhat like Joanna Gaines, a likable Texan who is the face of a hugely lucrative lifestyle brand who has just made her own cookery show. Sound familiar? Add the fact that brunette Gaines bears astonishing resemblance to Meghan. You can see why people who have started openly comparing the two. Yeah, no. And Joanna Gaines has an immense level of talent here. We haven't really seen Meghan's talent. She doesn't really have a great fashion sense. And honestly, when I see Meghan, I see somebody who's always trying to follow trends instead of creating them. And Joanna Gaines gained her following organically, naturally. They did their show Fixer Upper and it became a huge hit. People loved her style, they loved her aesthetic, and that grew organically. Meghan Markle wants to jump into the Joanna Gaines level without really growing things organically. And yes, they generate headlines, but those headlines are not turning into cash. I say that all the time because people say, oh, they're in the headlines, oh, they're in the headlines, but nobody's watching or buying their stuff. Ergo, even if they're in the headlines, it's not helping them. At the end of the day, it's not really helping them. Even if people talk about Polo, because the Sussex fans will go, oh, you're talking about their series, you're talking about their series. Yeah, but it's not helping it. So it's kind of pointless. And apparently Netflix really wanted to sign Joanna and Chip Gaines way back in 2017, but lost the deal to Warner Brothers. So that's just something to note as well, because they were a valued commodity. Even if Harry and Meghan come up on the market, even their friend at Paramount is probably not going to sign them because Paramount, number one, doesn't have any money and nobody really wants to invest in a series of failures. Fixer Upper was a success. So once you have success, you can build on that. There is no success for Harry and Meghan to build on, really. The only success they've had, really, is trading and disparaging their family. And people don't want to invest in that. It's muddies the water. It's a bad investment. So it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, but Joanna Gaines and Meghan Markle have nothing in common. They don't look alike, nothing. It's a little weird. So it says, so striking are the parallels between the two women. Some are believing Sandros is betting big that Meghan will strike a chord with ordinary viewers like the down-to-earth Gaines has. Well, the thing is, Gaines is down-to-earth, Meghan Markle is not. Her deluded ego is so bad. Like, her whole notion for polo is that they can encourage people to go out on like a Sunday or something and take a picnic lunch to a polo pitch. People who don't care about polo. And I'm like, nobody's going to do that. She was like trying to make it accessible. That was her help there. But it didn't work. So I'm like, how is she down? She's not down to earth. She's totally deluded. And so it's like, that's not going to help. It says they say the Duchess will be his vision of Gaines. Oh, that's almost so funny. It's really sad. Although Meghan's sophisticated vibe, it's not sophisticated. It's, I don't know what oh gosh, what word would I use? Probably elitist and snobbery. I would say Meghan Markle's brand is more snobbery. It's far distant from Gaines' hometown Texas charm, which is why it works. It doesn't work if you're a Hollywood elite sharing elite things and trying to like, the thing with Meghan Markle's brand is I feel like she's going to try to sell people on a low-brow luxury thing. So it's like it's luxury, but it's cheap, you know, so she's like making it more affordable, but at the same time, she won't use her own products. Because Meghan totally strikes me as somebody who would never use her own products because she still wants Hermes or something. Sandra said of Meghan in September, I've been out with a lot of famous people before, and the way the people react to Meghan is otherworldly. And you could read that both in a positive or very negative way, and I think it's going to be a negative way. It will need to be because time is ticking. That big money Netflix deal for Harry and Meghan comes to an end of its 5-year period in autumn next year, and Sandros will want results. However, well-placed Hollywood executives say that the deal will amount to nothing like the $100 million because of the lack of content the couple have actually produced. And I've said this before too, most of everything is wrapped up in production, in performance and different things. So they didn't get a lump sum of $100 million, and they definitely won't get the full payout. They didn't get the full payout from Spotify either. Notably, the Sussexes have failed to produce a single drama or movie. Unlike their role models, Barack and Michelle Obama, Netflix have bought the rights to the chick lit book, Meet Me at the Lake, for Harry and Meghan, an unusual move as you expect the producers to find the cash. But whatever stage the scripting is at, it has yet to enter production. And will probably not enter production at this point, let's be honest. It won't enter production. And even though Meghan's like whole pitch to Variety, when she was what, Woman of the Year or something, I can't quite remember. She's like, oh, what happened to rom-coms? I love rom-coms. And like, she didn't do anything with rom-coms. Oh, it's so weird. Anyways, it goes on to say, the same is true for the couple's TV series retelling the story of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations through a feminist lens with Miss Havisham as a heroine. Again, has yet to enter production. Neither show then looks likely to be completed or broadcast before the Netflix deal is up for renewal. And I totally forgot about that show. And because of sort of the negative reaction to the Mary Sue types and everything in the entertainment industry, I just don't see Netflix going forward with that. It's sort of, the industry is changing, and so those kind of stories, not that you can't have feminist stories, but the ones where like the main is sort of a Mary Sue type, which I imagine this would be, is definitely on the outs in the industry. All those series and television shows, everything with those type of leads have failed, and failed massively, and are starting to result in ire from the public. So like, why would Netflix put any money in that? They probably wouldn't. It says in March, it will be a whole year since the rather underwhelming soft launch of her lifestyle brand ARO. So far, there have been batches of jam and dog biscuits sent out to friends in numbered jars bearing its heraldic logo, one Instagram video in soft focus, and a slew of difficulties about its trademarks with the U.S. Patents and Trademark Organization, which is funny. It's funny. So much hinges then on how the brand is received by the public, and sources are certain Meghan is determined to own the project, as Meghan might put it herself. I'm told she is the CEO of American Riviera Orchard brand, which means it's going to fail because she's not a great businesswoman. She started out that way and remains the case. However, my understanding is that many of the brand's staff who are separate from the couple's media entity Archwell joined the company directly from Netflix. So that's sort of interesting. Again, I have such a hard time imagining Netflix would be going, yeah, let's get all the products produced for American Riviera Orchard. I guess if they want to take it out of whatever they were going to pay Harry and Meghan, they could, and sort of wash it out because they say, well, we paid you. We paid you basically to promote or create all these products that you were going to sell. And if you didn't sell them, that's on you. You don't get that money back. So that is a way Netflix could play that. Just find that really weird. But that it's totally under the control of Meghan. If I was Harry, I'd be a little worried, to be quite honest. They may still be being paid by Netflix, who are partnering with American Riviera Orchard to launch the brand. Netflix declined to comment in any way, and some sources say their link remains unconfirmed. It is, though, perhaps significant that the chief of marketing for Netflix follows ARO. Another key fact to note is that the brand is being run separately and by separate team to Archwell. Harry has no involvement in it. It's all down to Meghan. Because it's all down to Meghan, if it fails, it's all on Meghan. It's all on Meghan. She can't blame Harry. She can't blame anybody else. She's the CEO. It's her fault. It's her problem. With all that in mind, one can only hope for Meghan's sake that she's more at ease with pots and pans than polo ponies. And like, she might be a great cook. She may not. I don't know. But like, I just don't have high hopes for this, to be quite honest. And her inability, I think, to connect with an audience, because the problem is she can't connect with people. We will probably hear the soap story again on ARO. The series, I betcha, we'll hear the soap story again. And she will be doing dishes talking about the stupid soap story. And I'm sorry, but nobody connects to that. It's a dumb story. It doesn't make any sense from a logic perspective. I think it's a fairy tale, basically, your father told you when you were 10, so you felt really proud of yourself. And just, every time she goes on about that, it's like it becomes less and less believable. And so I just don't think she's going to be able to connect with people, because one of the big things about coming around the kitchen is family. She has no relationship with her family. So how can a kitchen be a big factor in her home in a way? Because although she might cook for her husband and her children, she doesn't really cook for anybody else. She has no relationship with her dad. Her husband has no relationship with his family. He's lost friends. She's lost friends. So it's like there's an element there that I feel like is so separate, where I could see in comparison Joanna Gaines hosting 50 people at her house for Thanksgiving. I cannot foresee Meghan doing that, because I don't think she has enough friends to do that, number one. But number two, all the transactional friends she has don't replace family and actual friends either. So it's probably not going to work. So another one, this is from the New York Post. This article said the project obviously failed badly going up against Black Doves, but I don't think even that was an issue. Said this could potentially be the nail in coffin for their deal with the streaming giant, who now use algorithms to make sure their programming is perfect for their subscribers. And I found that to be very interesting. I even read a thread on X recently talking about how, because they stopped password sharing, that they were able to more directly and correctly give people a better profile for what they might want to watch, and increase the algorithms, which were increase watch times and all sorts of different things. So there's so many factors going on in here. The conclusion everybody is sort of coming to at this point is that ARO is make it or break it. They've had 3 flops in a row. They need ARO to be a success. If it's not a success, it doesn't seem like anybody's willing or interested in picking them up. But the big problem is, as ARO goes through trademark hell, I mean, we've been promised a release in the spring of 2024, the summer of 2024, the fall of 2024. Now it's the first quarter of 2025. I imagine it still won't be the first quarter of 2025. She's missed the Christmas season. She looks increasingly inept. And what does she do? She goes out and parties at a friend's. Now, again, she has the right to do that, but I would have encouraged her to say, hey, make sure nobody gets a picture of you and post it, because the last thing you need as you're dealing with multiple failures is being seen partying, because her business is failing. The whole thing is failing. It's a house of cards about to come down. And what her and Harry need to do is buckle under, get focused, get driven, and achieve a level of success. Right now, they're not going to do that. They're just going to go on to more failure. And they could all address these, but they've got to get their act together. And they just seem to be unable to do that. So we shall see what the future holds for American Riviera Orchard, for Harry and Meghan with Netflix, but I think it's looking incredibly bleak. But you never know. Maybe she could pull it out. Do you think Meghan Markle can make herself authentic? I have my doubts, but let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you soon. Bye.